Hello and welcome to Box Score Network on YouTube. I am Simon Shore. Joining me this week or this episode tonight, I don't even know what day it is anymore, is Austin Freed. Austin, how you doing, man?
Tired. I just put in a bunch of work on Instagram Reels, so go show me some love, please, on the Box Score Instagram. That's at Box Score Network, by the way.
You can find a few of them on Twitter too at B Score Network. So yeah, shout out to Austin who was reacting to every pick of the first round. But we're here to kind of break down the first round of the NFL draft. Thank you all so much for being here. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. We've been here all week. We're not going away. We will be back tomorrow night after day two, and we will be back through the weekend with draft grades and other such content. So make sure you are here for all your NFL Draft 2025 needs. But for now, tonight, Austin, let's break down the first round of the draft. And really, I mean, we'll just start with this
Starts
top
at pick
five.
two.
It starts at pick two. Three picks were chalk that we expected here in the top five. Cam Ward, one to Tennessee. Abdul Carter, three to New York. Will Campbell, four to New England. We broke those down all week. We knew those were happening. The other two picks, though,
Well, if you just without the trade, they're very
yeah,
normal.
just don't look at the teams, and that's what we said the whole time. And it's funny because I think starting at like 5:30 p.m. Eastern, there was the quote. I think Diana Rossini had a quote from Ryan Poles that was like, Jacksonville's going to make a splash. And we're just like, okay, well, we learned that 24 hours ago. They want Genty or they're going to trade down for Tet. We got it. And then the thing just before I took my daughter to do bath time and get ready for bed, I saw the quote from Travis Hunter on the red carpet that just said, don't mess up. And it was just like cryptic, wide receiver tweet, insert here, no big deal. And, and then
He's
there it is
he's
on my
gonna play
phone.
receiver after all. That's
Right.
what we
Yeah.
learned from
Yeah.
that.
Confirmed. Confirmed. And then there it is. And we heard earlier in the week, the Browns were still getting calls about two. The Giants were getting calls about three, but that got put to bed by Wednesday morning. Those aren't going to happen. But here we are. The Jacksonville Jaguars trade up with the Cleveland Browns. They swap picks two and five. Jacksonville also sends next year's first round pick. What else did the Browns get? They got pick 36 in the second round, pick 126 in the fourth round, and they also sent back pick 200 in the sixth round as well as 104 in the fourth round. So the main thing here, Browns future first round pick and 36 overall to get up to two for Travis Hunter. What do you think about Travis Hunter to Jacksonville?
I think it's awesome. It's legitimately one of the best landing spots for him. Obviously, the lower down you go in the draft, the better team you're going to. So when a team trades up for you, you're going to a better team. So that's always good news when a team trades up for a player. That means they're generally speaking going to a better situation. And having Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback, having Brian Thomas Jr. as the team's, already there alpha wide receiver, and then coming into a really, I don't want to call it like there's nobody there. There's bodies there, but no like real stars on defense, at least at the defensive back position. Uh,
Hey,
so I
Tyson
think
Campbell. I will not take any Tyson Campbell
I said stars.
besmirchment.
I said stars.
Um,
Dyson Campbell's their best DB. But yeah, Travis Hunter immediately becomes, and this is more of what we thought of him like 2 months ago before we kind of flipped as him as wide receiver more so than corner. At this point, I think he's equally both. He's
yes,
going to play a lot of corner for this
yes.
team, and I think he's going to play a fair amount of receiver. I think he's going to be slightly more of a DB than a receiver in Jacksonville. I think if we would have gone to the Browns, it would have been the other way.
Right.
But the needs of the Jags dictate. I think he's going to be more so a corner. Do you disagree with that?
I think I do. Let me double check. Who are the receivers for Jacksonville that are not named Brian Thomas Jr. that I'm not
Cooper just got
considering?
traded,
Right.
so he's not there anymore.
They signed Diami Brown, right, from the Commanders.
Yes.
They gave him that 1 year, $10 million deal.
Yep.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I think Travis Hunter's playing both ways pretty significantly.
I
But
do
here's
too.
here's the thing. Here's the thing for him there as opposed to Cleveland, right? Because let's say he had gone to Cleveland, he's wide receiver one. He's legitimately like the offense runs through him
Yes.
at that
Yeah,
point.
exactly.
And if the Denzel Ward like stuff hadn't worked out, he might have also been their number one corner. Now
Hmm.
he goes to Jacksonville. He can kind of be number two at both, and maybe not like in talent, Madden rating, whatever you want to call it. But like you've got a big X receiver in Brian Thomas, and Hunter can work off of that. And then even at corner, depending on what they want to do, Tyson Campbell is good and he's the big body. So he might be your like put him on wide receiver one, big lockup guy, and then Travis Hunter's your like set it, forget it, take down the other side of the field kind of thing.
Mhm.
You might not be asking him to take on the same physical toll on either side of the ball to the degree that he would have in Cleveland. So I think, yeah, I mean, and Liam Cohen running the offense, and I think this is a home run. I think this is the second best guy on my board, number one guy on your board, our consensus number one at box score. So you can't really beat it, and they can use him on both sides.
Just to touch one more time on the offense, I think you've got Brian Thomas as your X, and then you've got like Parker Washington as your slot guy,
Mm,
the smaller, almost running back type Parker Washington, who was in last year's draft, or maybe
hmm
2 years ago. I think last year's draft. And then Travis Hunter is going to be like your Z. He's your
Yep.
move guy. Um, and I think that's the role he's going to play. It's not an unimportant role, but sometimes it is the best role on offense. Like I think that's what like Puka Nacua plays a lot of
Yes. Yep.
for the Rams. So like that can be your best guy, but it's a play style thing.
Because what was Hunter's one knock about being a receiver? Well, he's not super advanced as a route runner. Doesn't need to do that as the Z man. He doesn't need to do that. He's not breaking all those things down. Hey, run. Here's some slants. Here's some shallow crossers. Here's some nines. Like, just go be dynamic. Get the ball in
Yep.
his hands quick and go make stuff happen. So I think this is great. Get some easy stuff going for Trevor Lawrence in that offense. I think that's really good. Let's talk about the flip side of this, the Browns. What are the Browns doing? Austin, what's going on here? Is this all just like
I
trying
believe
to
they
get a
took a,
quarterback in
a Colt
2026?
45 and just shot themselves directly in both feet, is what they did here. It must be to play for like have ammo to make sure you can get like the number one quarterback in next year's
Hmm.
draft. Mason Graham's a fine player. You're a little bit higher than him than I am,
Hmm.
I believe.
Yep,
I
I have him third on my board.
Yeah, I think Mason Graham is good. I don't necessarily I wouldn't have picked him at 5. Genty was on the board. They already have Nick Chubb, so I was like, are they trading down for Genty? Is Nick Chubb's injury bad or something? I don't know what's going on there.
And Chubb might even still be a
Uh,
free agent, but yeah, I think all likelihood he'd be back at this
he's
point.
gonna be back, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was really confused by this move, and they had to have been just ridiculously high on Mason Graham, I think, to pull this off. I know that we looked at the trade value chart, and you said they got about 66 points roughly
Yep.
on the Rich Hill model,
Yep.
which is the equivalent of like pick 72 or 73,
Right.
which is a sort of early third rounder. So call it they get an early third round pick value total for this trade down.
Hmm.
Not worth it. Like
Hmm.
the difference between getting Travis Hunter and getting Mason Graham is just astronomical.
Right, because we've seen this story with the Browns, right? And I know I've got the Steelers stuff in the background, so don't just label me a hit. But we've seen this story with the Browns. What happens when their defensive line is elite and suffocating, doesn't let anything happen? 10 wins,
Yep.
9 wins. Like Travis Hunter is a special, special player. Um, and Stefanski and Barry got to feel like they have a lot of they've got to have swagger in that building to think that they can just make a play for next year's draft, right? On the heels of this year, the way everything kind of fell apart, all the stuff that like Barry's on some like Nico Harris, Dallas Mavericks stuff right now. I can't imagine what the city of Cleveland is doing. It's Anthony Molina in draft day, shout out draft day, going to the draft with his Bo Callahan specially made jersey. He's going to hand it to him, and then he's got to spike that thing down when Vontae Mack's name gets announced first overall. So any Browns affiliated people that were not in the decision making process, and again, I love Mason Graham. I think he's been really good, and you got Myles Garrett on one end, like taking up some attention. So Graham's going to be good. What is it going to get you, right? As opposed to and I was with you. I thought it was going to be Genty because I was like, okay, if in your mind this whole time you've been thinking I'm going to get this skill player, this offensive weapon in Hunter. Well, I'll just, okay, Genty, like different position, not quite as valuable, but like you're going to give it to him all the time, blah, 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 blah.
He's going to be
If
your
the,
new Nick Chubb, and they had a lot of success with Nick Chubb.
Right. So you're just focusing, you don't have a quarterback, right? So you're like, well, let's make our run game elite if
Mhm.
as part of offensive our offensive positioning, offensive mindset. and they just double down on the defensive line. So that's tough. TBD. We'll wait till next year. Cleveland Browns. Enjoy Kenny Pickett. Next few picks here. Uh, Pretty chalk again. And Austin as a
Well,
network.
not not Tet to the Panthers. I don't think that's chalk.
Oh, see, I was getting there, man.
Okay.
So here. Let me lay this out. So Genty goes 6 to the Raiders, Membu 7 to the Jets, Tet 8 to the Panthers, and then it gets a little different with Banks and Loveland. So let's focus on these top three here. Genty and Membu, yeah, solid. We've talked about that for weeks, no problem. Pete Carroll on Twitter is the new GOAT, so go follow him if you haven't already, or whoever's running Pete Carroll's Twitter. I don't know. Ted McMillan 8 to the Panthers. We love Ted at box score. I think his range was what, like 5 to 7 or something like that, 4 to 7 on our boards overall. Um, I had gotten to this point. It's on this feed, the War Room series. We're talking about the Panthers. First round, just go get a guy for Bryce Young. And I think we said it. Did we? One of our videos this week, we talked about we'll know what the Panthers' goal for this season is based on this first round pick. Because it's either edge rusher because they need one, so like build a foundation for that defense by getting one, or pass catcher weapon, something to make life easier for Bryce Young. See what you got. That's the route they took. Um, so I just us being high on Tet overall as a network and wanting to kind of see what, maybe Bryce Young could have in the tank. I think this made a lot of sense. We had this in a couple of our mocks at some points. So I'd like Tet here at 8.
Yeah, I also really like it here. It's value. I think as soon as he got past like pick 6 with the Raiders, I think it became a value pick, whether it would have been the Jets or the Panthers, or if he fell to like the Saints would have also made sense. But yeah, I really like the pick. It is like we said when I think it was our mock draft where we put Warren to them.
Yep.
When we said this, they're picking a lane
Yep.
with this pick, and they picked a lane, and now we're just going to see how that lane treats them.
Quickly 9, Kelvin Banks. I thought they were going to go Michael Williams. I thought it was going to be edge rusher,
Me too.
but no qualms with the offensive line. I'm interested to see, do they move Fuaga back to the right side, which is where he played in college, and keep
So,
Banks on the left side? I imagine so, but I think Fuaga was fine on the left side. But I imagine they'll just keep those guys comfortable. See if Penning can go back to left guard where they tried him a little bit. But Banks at left tackle is solid. Colston Loveland at 10 to Chicago. Goes higher, not only in the draft than a lot of people, including myself, expected, but goes before Tyler Warren. Talk to us about that.
yeah, sorry, technical difficulties. We're back. Loveland, yeah, I like Loveland a lot, actually. I think he's a very good tight end. He is not the best tight end in this class overall, but he does some things better than Warren does. And I think he actually reminds me a little bit of Sam Laporta. And, Ben Johnson coming from Detroit just might really like that skill set and really want that for his offense. And if that's the case, I understand it. But I do think it's a slight downgrade in terms of the overall player. But if this is just the archetype that Ben Johnson wants, then I guess it makes enough sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I can see the path. So I said to you before we started recording, this might be my least favorite pick in the first round, which is tough because, like, yeah, Loveland's a good player. It's not like I was like totally out on this guy. It's not like I don't think Ben Johnson can cook something up, but it does feel a little bit like Ben's bringing the playbook. But Ben Johnson's bringing the playbook
You're on
over,
a
and is
first name
like,
basis.
I feel like it at this point. I've talked about him enough. It feels like he was just like, I just need a tight end that moves like Sam Laporta. So like, give me that guy, and not really. That makes me a little nervous. Like, any other new tricks? No. Like, is it all the same thing? But I think even more than that, I just look at the roster, and I just was assuming it was gonna be trenches. I thought edge rusher. I thought tackled. Now listen, maybe Kelvin Banks was their guy. Or maybe Membu was there. 3 tackles went off the board before they picked at 10. So maybe it was a little bit of that. And then they didn't want a project edge rusher, I guess. So just get a surefire thing. Maybe it's a bit of a low-ish ceiling but high-ish floor kind of situation at tight end. I can see where it does fit schematically. So if he just lets Ben Johnson run the offense he wants to run, we'll see, and then we'll see how they fill out the rest of the draft. But this one was a shocker, for sure. All right, the next handful of picks here. Michael Williams to San Francisco, Tyler Booker to Dallas, Kenneth Grant to Miami. Beef in those couple picks. Tyler Warren, more beef. 14 to the Colts. Jalen Walker, 15 to the Falcons. What do you think about this range?
I think it starts off like actually, I mean, I think the whole thing's fantastic. Let's be honest. Michael Williams, tremendous talent in terms of his physical capabilities and his football IQ are both really high. The sort of technique is okay and the production's low. And that's just kind of what you got to deal with sometimes with these edge rushers. So that's fine. Tyler Booker, the player is incredible at what he does well. He has some serious pitfalls. So it's very scheme dependent. And I think the Cowboys are one of those teams that I think does uh, sort of use his archetype pretty well. I was really hoping for like the Lions to get their hands on him. That was
Hmm.
my favorite fit,
Oh yeah,
but
oh yeah.
I do like the Cowboys fit here. I'm a big Kenneth Grant fan. Couldn't really go wrong. Whoever took Kenneth Grant, you're just getting a really good football player. Same with Tyler Warren. It's a great fit with the Colts because they needed the tight end so badly. And then Jalen Walker falls, quote unquote. Um, I think talent wise, this is about where I had him. I think on our big boards, he was somewhere in this general range as well. Um, where did he come up in our?
I had him at 12. You had him at about 25, I think.
Yeah, but I mean our
The
overall consensus
consensus somewhere
board.
somewhere in the middle of those, I imagine.
Yeah, where
Right,
was it? Oh,
literally
there it
right
is
in the
at
spot.
13. At
Yeah.
13. Yeah. So yeah, him being on 13 on our consensus board shows this is about where he should be going. So I think the value's there. I think these are five of the more solid picks in the entire draft, just all sort of parlayed together.
Yeah, I really like Kenneth Grant to Miami. That's my favorite one here. I was saying the last few weeks they just need a real foundational piece, someone that can play in the wintertime, someone that can be literally a winner. So I think Grant is fantastic. Booker is so fun to Dallas. It wasn't what we were expecting. It wasn't what was mocked. It wasn't maybe even technically on paper their biggest need, but it's a dude. It's a player.
Mhm.
It's in the trenches. Obviously, they have the departure of Zach Martin to retirement at the end of the season. So this is a plug and play guy that's going to keep Dak Prescott clean. And then yeah, Walker, I love that 15 because I think the Falcons will see how they decide to use him. But based on the way their rosters, they have so many of those like mid tier, like mid draft pick guys on the defensive line still hanging around. They don't necessarily need to put Walker on the line as a true 100% edge rusher, which I think would be better for his skill set. Let him move around. So I think they'll be able to use him to the best of his abilities. Um, over there, and Michael Williams, Robert Saleh was that was the guy he wanted of the edge rushers, was what was reported. So I think that's great. Next few picks: Walter Nolan to the Cardinals, Shamar Stewart to the Bengals, Gray Zabel to the Seahawks, Emeka Ibuka to the Bucks, Jade Barron to the to the Broncos. This is a fun group as well. What stands out?
Uh, I think Gray Zabel to the Seahawks stands out because that's just a position that they don't really go for often. And we'd heard a lot of smoke about it. I chose to believe it. I know you didn't, Simon,
Yep,
but I'm glad they did that.
I am too. I didn't want to get
Uh,
my hopes up. I
yeah,
couldn't allow myself to get too excited. But
yeah.
here we are.
Uh, I think I'm glad he was the second guard off the board because I do like Booker more than him,
Hmm.
but I figured that he was going to go there and Booker was going to go after
Yep.
because just the fit of Zabel in Seattle makes way more
Yeah.
sense
Zabel's
than
more
Booker.
scheme versatile. He's more athletic. He's lighter on his feet. You figured between being able to play zone blocking schemes, it would be a little bit more consensus he could go first. But I
Yeah.
agree. I have Booker rated higher than Zabel as well.
And then I love the Emeka Ibuka pick to the Bucks.
Hmm.
He is primarily a slot guy. He's going to be able to fill this Chris Godwin role fantastically.
Hmm.
And then just keep the weapons. Baker Mayfield really apparently just thrives whenever he's got good guys to throw the ball to. Believe it or
Weird.
not, I don't.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? So yeah, just keep giving him weapons and don't let the well run dry for Baker.
Uh, I know Abuka or Gold into the Bucks was a popular mock, but it just never felt like a need. So it
Mhm.
wasn't the one we went with traditionally. But like Abuka could have gone anywhere, and I don't think anybody would have been like bad pick. Like Abuka is just gonna fit in anywhere. He's gonna do everything you need him to. So I think that's a solid one. I I love Walter Nolan to the Cardinals. He was rising up my board over the last month or so. They have Demarcus Robinson, who they drafted late in the first round last year. He was hurt for most of his rookie year. They signed Calais Campbell. They just need to continue to get that front line, that pass rush going. So I think that's a really, really solid pick. Shamar Stewart to the Bengals, developmental guy. Um, so that'll be fun too. And then Jahdae Barron, I think, is going to get to go to Denver and just be a slot corner on an already good defense, and he's just going to elevate it. That's a home run fit, I think. We'll
Fitz
see if they have
Fitz
him play the
awesome.
outside. They could, but he's not going to have to be the number one because Pat Surtain is obviously there. But it's also just a good defense overall. So even if he is on the outside, they have a good pass rush. They have a good run defense. Like he's going to be covered up in that aspect, but I think he's going to get to play in the slot, which is going to be really good for him and the rest of that group.
That's also got to be the fastest defense ever now. Like they just have speed everywhere on that
Yeah.
defense.
Instincts, they're smart, they're tough, like they go after they're making plays. Like remember when we were doing our preview show last year, all those like little props that I would we would find for Bonito, like
Yeah.
get a force fumble here,
Yep.
get a tip ball here. Like those guys are just gonna make plays on the ball, and I like that they double down on the defense. Next handful of picks here. Derek Harmon to the Steelers, Omarion Hampton to the Chargers, Matthew Golden to the Packers, and we'll stop here with Donovan Jackson at the Vikings before we start talking about trades. So four picks there: Harmon, Hampton, Golden, and Jackson. Our two teams are in this range. How do you feel about those two picks?
I like yours more than mine. I'll be honest. I think you do as well. Harmon, such an incredible fit to the Steelers. We've talked about this a lot. He's
Hmm.
been mocked there a lot, understandably so. Hampton going at 22 to the Chargers is not one I had put too much thought into. I thought if they were going skill position, they would help Herbert out and put a little more talent out there with Ladd, whether it be tight end or receiver. But they elect to pass Matthew Golden and go for the running back, which does make sense because they're running backs of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, not super healthy and a little bit old at this point.
And
So,
they signed Najee Harris, but that's
oh yeah,
not
yeah. They signed
exactly
Najee Harris.
exactly.
Yeah, well, the running backs last year were those guys. So now they have a nice 1-2 punch of
Mhm.
Harris and Hampton. And Harris is on a pretty team friendly contract,
Like 1 year
relatively.
with like a bunch of incentives, I think. So
Yeah. So we'll
tough work
see.
for Najee. Tough work.
Yeah. Matthew Golden goes to the Packers. This is one that I do love. They finally go first round receiver. They need an alpha on this team. And unfortunately, I don't necessarily think Matthew Golden's that guy. I really think, which is unfortunate, I think Matthew Golden is just like a better Jaden Reed. And Jaden Reed's very good, but like I don't know. I don't. And it's just they needed to get like a Ted McMillan or like if Jaden Higgins works out or like Iomanor, like they just need like a big dominant outside alpha who you can just like get the ball to no matter what and trust it's going to work out. And I just don't think Golden's that guy. Although I do really like Golden and his skill set, it's just not the fit for me.
It's funny because they're doing the broadcast and it's in Green Bay and they all wanted a receiver and they're like, this is the guy. They finally, since 2002, first round receiver, this is going to be the top dog. And I'm just watching. I'm like, he looks real short for this guy that they're talking about, this top dog number one wide receiver. But the other funny thing was that on the flip side, Christian Wilkins, man, I know injuries are a thing, but like a bunch of soft tissue injuries. Are you doing everything you need to in the off season to stay healthy, to be ready for the season? Romeo Dubs, you're gonna skip practice and end up not playing in a game or being benched for whatever amount of time. Guys, we did it. We drafted a receiver in the first round, so everybody kind of fall in line, right? This
Yeah.
felt like a little bit of LaFleur's got some like shit in his neck a little bit, right? Like he likes to give it to his guys, no doubt. So I wonder if this was a little bit of a, maybe this is the year to go get a guy in the first round and let all these guys in the room know like, sorry, but we can replace you. We can move on. We can move you down the pecking order. Um, Golden's a fun player, but yeah, skill set wise, he just feels like another complementary piece to the room, not a number one X run the ball through me kind of guy.
And I love Emeka Ibuka. I would have said the same thing had they taken like Emeka Ibuka. It's just
Right.
not the player type. And Golden will play on the outside. He's not like
Yes.
Ibuka who's going to be like a slot guy, but he's more of that Z type
Right.
that we talked about with Travis Hunter rather than a pure X,
Yeah,
which they
he's
hope
more
Christian.
in the realm of Christian Watson than Romeo Dubs from a positional
Yes.
standpoint.
Yes.
Donovan Jackson, any words? Anything?
You have a not a rookie quarterback, but a first year starting quarterback, and generally speaking, pressure up the middle is one of the tougher things for young quarterbacks, and it's something that some guys never get over. Is just the ability to take pressure up the middle, and we were probably going to see a good bit of that for the Vikings. So I do like that this was addressed. Malachi Starks was on the board as my only qualm. Also, Will Johnson was on the board. He clearly has some medical stuff going on.
Yes.
We'll talk
Hmm.
about that after 32 maybe, but um, it, Malachi Starks is on the board. I just don't know how you pass that talent because and it's not like you skip the safety to go a positional that has way more value, like you're
Edge,
going
receiver,
edge, receiver,
tackle. Yeah.
tackle. You're going from a safety, which is a lesser thought of positional value, to guard. So yeah, I would have taken Starks.
You know I love it. But yes, I would have loved Starks in this defense as well. Versatile piece like that with Flores would have been great. All right, we have a couple trades we need to talk about here back to back. First off, our guy, Jackson Dart, goes
Oh,
in the first round. The New York Giants trade up to get him. They ended up trading, what was it? Pick 34, pick 99, and next year's third round pick to get to pick 25 to take Jackson Dart. And then let me just go ahead and give the next trade too, because then the Falcons said, hold my beer, followed that up with a trade for James Pierce. They trade pick 46, 242, and next year's first round pick to go to 26 and 101 and take James Pierce. So they move up 20 spots here at the this part of the draft. They move up 140 spots in the to get into the end of day two there at pick 101, but they give up next year's first round to do it. These two trades back to back, these two picks, what do you think?
we'll go Dart first. I'm surprised he went up in front of Shador. From a talent perspective, he's not as good as Shador. From a fit perspective with the Giants, it makes more sense. And the Giants honestly didn't pay that like big quarterback tax to go
Mm-mm.
up.
Nope.
Like they didn't pay nearly as much as you would think it costs to go up and get a quarterback specifically, because everybody knew they were going for quarterback. You couldn't really hide that. Um, and then I don't really know what the Falcons are thinking. You take an edge in round one at pick 15, and then 11 picks later, you're like, I'm going to sell the farm to go grab another edge. Again, when like Malachi Starks is on the board and you could use DBs, um, injuries obviously, but Jahad Campbell's on the board and what Will Johnson's on the board. I just don't really understand the thought process. I like the player of James Pierce Jr. I think as long as the sort of character stuff checks out with
Hmm.
him, which the Falcons aren't necessarily known for going after guys who have those character concerns. So they must really think it's nothing, is sort of how I'm reading that.
The scuttlebutt was for Atlanta all the way up at 15 that they were, I think, taking a year off from worrying about character concerns because they were like Mike Green, James Pierce, Walter Nolan, all in play at 15,
Yeah.
every single one of them. They could have saved that PR spin by just letting Jalen Walker fall to him, be like, "Nah, this was the guy. This is everything we wanted." Um, I would have much rather, I get getting another edge rusher, right? Getting another pass rusher. It's what you need. I just would have stuck at 46 and taken JT Tuimalau, taken Princely Uman taken Jack Sawyer, even seeing if my guy Darius Alexander fell, get some pass rush from the interior. Uh, Mike Green is still on the board. So who knows if he's going to keep falling for a little bit? So could you have just wait and seen there? But Pierce was a guy they liked at 15. But man, this duo here, this leadership for the Falcons is just doing some weird stuff. Pierce, fine player, could be really good player, high potential type player, but this is a lot. Next year's first round pick to do this. Meanwhile, yes, the New York Giants. Jackson Dart is the right fit for them. You're betting on the traits. You're betting on the tools that are there, more than the ready-made, more so of Shadur.
He also doesn't have to
Um,
start there.
and he doesn't have to start. You can go through multiple veteran quarterbacks under with bad strings of games before you have to play Jack Dart. You could go through all three of those guys. You could put Dart in street clothes if you want, to start the season. But yeah, this made sense. It wasn't a big trade. Can we talk about Houston on the other end of this? Because we could do this all we want, but Dart he's not going to start right away. But it'd be cool to see Dayball work with him. We both like him. We didn't necessarily have him rated as a first rounder, but we like watching him play. The dude is fun to watch, so
Mhm.
that'll be fun with Dayball. Houston at 25 goes down to, what did I say, 34, and they pick up 99. So you're picking up a comp pick to move down 8 spots when you need a left tackle.
I
And
my
Connerly and Josh Simmons are both right there.
my thought is they really thought Connerly was going to be there. I'm guessing they were really thrown off by Connerly going at 29.
I'm trying to find my tweet here. I gotta run through
Check the receipts.
Some Shadur hate tweets that I was getting some in my mentions. Um Here's what I said. Oh, okay. Houston moving out with Connerly and Simmons on the board. Wonder if they wanted one of the guards instead of a tackle, and then all three of those guards were
Awesome.
gone, right? So like the moment um Donovan Jackson gets taken, they're like, well, we can trade out. We wanted a guard. Or if they thought like let's trade back in. Let's trade, we're hearing Kansas City might trade out of pick 31. We're
Yeah.
hearing Buffalo might trade out of 30. And then Connerly goes at 29. They're like, well, now we can't do that.
Yep.
Um, you're playing with fire at that point, man. If you're thinking you want to tackle and you're thinking you're gonna move back in at the end of the first round of the
There's
game, you are
two.
playing
There's
with
two available, and you're like, yeah, but yeah, it is risky game if that's what they're playing, or their plan's receiver.
who's that receiver now?
Luther Burden, Alec Ayamanor, Jaden
Yeah.
Higgins, one
Yeah,
of those three.
I like Iomanor and Higgins. So okay, there's room. Or at 34, are you taking Arion Territory potentially? Um, I don't think I want to put him in that group that's currently there. That feels like you're begging for trouble. I would have much rather have one of these first round guys. But weird move by Houston. But we'll see. If they swing on one of these receivers and they say this is our kind of pseudo Tank Dell situation right now for a year or so while he gets healthy, we'll see what they do. Getting into these last few picks, these really good teams here. Malachi Starks to the Ravens because, of course, Tyleik Williams to the Lions. That's a fun one. Josh Connerly to the Commanders. Maxwell Harrison to the Bills. And then the Eagles and Chiefs do a little switcheroo. So the Eagles can take Jahad Campbell, your guy, and the Chiefs take Josh Simmons. What do you think about this
Also,
group?
my guy.
We got a few of our guys down here at the end of the first round. We both love Starks. I'm a big Connerly. I'm a big Hairston guy. You're a big
I'm
Campbell and a
big.
big Simmons guy.
I'm also a big Tyleik Williams guy.
You are. You are. You are. Yep. Yep. Where did you actually have him on your board? You said 31?
Tyleik Williams is 31 on my board.
All right.
Jahad Campbell, obviously the injury. I don't count the
Yes.
injuries
He,
against
yep.
these kind of players.
Mhm.
He's 9 on my board without the injury, and then Josh Simmons is 15 on my board without the injury. So yeah,
Um, I have all those guys as top 40 players. I think I have Tyler Williams at 41, so I could put Dart in my top 40. But
you're the
Williams was
biggest Hairston guy I know. I think.
love Maxwell Harrison, man. You have to be, you have to have Napoleon complex as a corner, even if you're a
Uh,
big corner. But he's got it as a small one.
yeah,
Um, I watched the first game I watched of him. I forget who it was, but there was like a run to his side and the linebacker in front of him tackles the running back, and he was ready to do it, but he was still talking trash. Like he was just ready to go. He's getting people's. I love Harrison. He's gonna make some plays for the Bills, which I think is gonna be really big. Tyler Williams Didn't think he'd go in the first round, but he is extremely good at what he does. Might be the pure, like the best pure run stopping defensive tackle in this entire draft. Um,
He absolutely is, in my opinion.
Malachi
And that's
Starks. Oh, go ahead. Talk about the
and
other
that's
ones.
sort of the riches of being the Lions and just having
Right.
just a
Exactly.
deep roster already. You're like, I can just go grab the guy who's the best at what he does because
Yep.
there's none of those really left in this
Right.
class.
Right.
Um,
You have Aleem McNeil as your like smaller, penetrating, pass rushing defense tackle, and then next to him you just let Tylik be his bodyguard, essentially.
yep.
Which is funny to say about a guy who's 290 pounds needing a bodyguard, but when the other guy's 335, that'll do it. Malachi Starks to the Ravens is just like, of course,
Yep.
number 9 guy on my board. Just is a Raven at the end of the first round. There's never a doubt really, except for would it be Will Johnson who I had 13 on my board? It was going to be one of those two for sure. Um, I love Connerly to the Commanders, which is hilarious because like they ignored offensive line for years and they finally kind of get their offensive line settled and then they draft one in the first round. But I really like Connerly. So however they move those guys around, whether they play Connerly at left guard until Tunsil is done, whether they put him over at right tackle and they move Brandon Coleman to left guard, we'll
I think
see.
that makes more
Um,
sense to me.
I've seen too many of these young tackles get flip sides when they don't need to. Like I almost because Connerly strength is a bit of an issue.
Yeah,
So
so you
you
want
don't
him at
love that
guard?
moving. But here's the thing. I don't know if I like Coleman's footwork and speed at guard.
That's true.
Because Connolly is smooth. He is
Yeah.
smooth at least. And between Biotish and between Tunsil, like he's got a little muscle backing him up there. But he is quick enough, he's smooth enough with his hands to make it work. I think he could hang there. It's not perfect for either of those two guys.
Mhm.
But the point is you bring in the talent
Yeah.
and you see what camp brings and you try guys at different sides because maybe Connolly walks in and he's completely natural at right tackle and it's not an issue. Maybe Coleman you play him at left guard and you're like, oh, you know what, this works, and it's all fine, and that's what you want. You
Yeah.
just bring the guys in and you see what happens. Campbell to the Eagles is of course Josh Simmons to the Chiefs. Thank goodness, man. Thank goodness. Like I'm not in love. I don't love Josh Simmons as much as you. I still have him as 31 on my board. And for the Chiefs, he should have been like 5 on their board. It should have been
Yeah.
the 5 tackles in a row.
Yeah.
Um, all the talent is there. Jalen Moore that comes from the 49ers. Jalen Moore, whoever it is at this point, he could play guard, but you at least have him as a stopgap while Simmons gets healthy and maybe if you want to work on some technique stuff, get him cleaned up a little bit. But that's their future left tackle, and that's huge for this team.
Uh, Jahad Campbell going to the Eagles and two soldier shoulder injuries. He might not be very healthy this season, but they lost Zach Bond and or they re-signed Zach Bond. Okay. So they yeah,
I get
but
you.
he reminds me a bit of that less I guess good against the pass, but just really solid tackler, can run sideline to sideline, has the potential to be one of the best linebackers in the league, and can sort of sit and be
Yes.
like get healthy with the Eagles and doesn't have to be like pressured to go out there and perform week one.
He doesn't have to go out there as a guy that's only played linebacker for what, a year and a half, play 3 downs, wear the green. He's not going to have to do any of that. He's going to
Yeah.
come in and just be asked to go run and hit. And that's perfect for him for a year while, he's going to be trying to get healthy and then start to ramp up. And it's going to be a great fit. Austin, anything else for you, big picture on the first night of this draft? Who are some guys left off the board that you're surprised by?
Well, I want to talk about Will Johnson
Yes.
mostly because just the injury like has to be legitimate, like and
Yes.
not anything to mess with because he's a top 5 player in this class without that injury. I think some people would argue he's the second or he's behind Barron in terms of corner level, but like without a doubt, top 20 in this class
Mhm.
without the injury. And it just doesn't make sense for him to fall as far unless the injury is like severe.
And
Like
it sounds like, good.
when you see Campbell and Simmons fall down, they fall from like middle of the first to late first.
Hmm.
And for him to fall from early first out of the first completely is like bad news.
And it sounds like it's more of a long-term knee thing. So we see these where it's not a specific injury he's recovering from, because those you have timetables, right? Okay,
Yeah.
this and there's precedent. It what I heard on the broadcast was long-term knee
Chronic.
stuff. So whether it's an arthritis thing, whether it's a debilitating tendonitis, whatever. I'm not a doctor, but just something where it's like this guy might only have 3 years, and if he's coming off of an injury right now, like who knows? So that sucks because we love Will Johnson. So hope somebody has a clean bill of health on him and he can get out there and he can start playing. Shadur. I need to give you my Shadur thing for a minute here. First off,
Please.
got some people in my mentions about Shadur, which is great. Love that. I thought he was when I posted that round mock this afternoon. I had him at 33 to the Browns because I was like Travis Hunter 2, Shadur 33. Like I hadn't even thought about that yet. I don't know if that can happen now. I don't know if the Sanders family is gonna let that slide. They're like, we're already in the second round. We don't care about going 33. You just traded out Travis Hunter. We're not gonna do this. So I don't know. Now the Rams got that extra second round pick. I don't know. What do you think's happening for Shadur this round? Because he's going tomorrow night, right? He's not gonna
He's
go to
got no.
Saturday.
He's
Yeah.
no, no, no. He's not going to Saturday. When you're looking at teams that need,
Should the Titans draft him as a backup at 35?
that'd be funny. When you're looking at teams who need a ready quarterback, whether it be like as your immediate starter or as your emergency guy, because you just don't really know what the quarterback situation is. You don't want this like the higher potential guys like a Shuck who's left or like a Milrow. Um, but you need someone who like is pretty capable to come in immediately. I think there's a few teams with that. You already talked the Browns. I don't think he's going to the Browns for Sanders family reasons.
Yep.
The Saints need that. I would argue the Dolphins need that with the
I was.
uncertainty around Tua. And I honestly think the Colts could use that.
Oh my God. That's so fun. Holy crap. Now, the thing with Sanders going into that room, we're getting real nerdy at this level of the pocket. That is very fun though, and that is potential for disaster for everybody.
The
But
Jets also could use that.
Jets, I'm also looking at, I mean, the Rams are right there in the middle of a couple of those teams you
I,
mentioned at
I don't think
46.
I think the
You
Jets
don't
or
like that?
the
Or
Rams are
I
more in that like go get Milrow or Shuck
can
or
develop.
someone who can develop and potentially be this star rather than get somebody who, although I'm not necessarily super in on Shuck, but like um more higher ceiling
High
guys.
ceiling. Okay.
Yeah.
I hear that. I hear that. It just didn't feel like in that process, except for those first couple days, that the Saints were really going to be in on him. It just didn't feel like that was the fit. But I think I like the Dolphins because that processing, quick trigger, which he showed more his first
Mhm.
year at Colorado than he did this past year. But accuracy, like those things fit what McDaniel wants to do. Um, it's so funny because the Browns are sitting there at 33 and 36, and you're like, that would be perfect, and it just doesn't feel like that's in the cards now. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if the Raiders want to do something at 37. Probably not. I think they want to. I could see a running back or a safety going there or one of these corners.
He wouldn't make it down to the Steelers in round 3. I think we're both
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
sure
yeah.
of that. But the Steelers do have a third round pick, right?
Yep, 81.
Yeah. So would they be able to
Seattle?
trade up and get him?
Seattle has 2 picks here in the second round, 50 and 52, and they already took a guard.
I I don't think they go quarterback though. They've got Darnold on a 3. Again, I think if they go
Darnold, they
quarterback,
can get out after one though. Darnold,
that's true.
this is where
That's
the magic happens, baby.
I
1:08
still
a.m.
I
Eastern
still want him.
time.
I want him to be a Colt. I want Shador Sanders to be the Colts quarterback.
Ah, the chaos, the chaos.
It's because right now the quarterback room
When
is Anthony
Richardson gets
Richardson.
benched in week 3, but then Daniel Jones comes in instead of Shadur, Twitter will be aflame. Aflame. And I'm here for it. I'd be okay with that. All right. So quickly run. You have the consensus board up, I think, but I'll quickly
I
run
do.
through my board. Who hasn't been taken from the consensus board that we're high on?
Siobhan Ravel is high on our consensus board. He's
Yep.
still on there. Mike Green, who
Yep.
isn't an injury concern, he is a uh, off the field potential issue, legal
Yep.
issue.
hmm
So that is apparently more serious than it was kind of said to be. I
hmm
think a lot of people were like, "Oh, wait, it's really nothing." Like they're
Yeah,
kind of patting it down. Apparently, is something because he would go in the first if it weren't for that issue.
probably the case that like five teams were good, and those teams could have ranged anywhere from like 14 to 32, and those
Yep.
teams just didn't happen to need him at that time. Um,
The other, the
Ezuraku
other,
we liked.
the other names I was
Ezuraku.
going to say are Ezuraku, Imanwari,
Hmm.
Burden, and Iomanor. Those are our next
Yep.
guys who are slated to
Trey
go.
Amos is another one. Ariante Ursary, Tua Malau. I don't think anybody that's like you already at the top. You hit the guys that are more quote unquote surprising. I don't think anything crazy happened. I think if anything, like Tylik Williams instead of Mike Green is
Yeah.
probably the one big surprise, or instead of Savon Ravel, who I imagine will be going very soon here. Um, yeah, Ezuraku. I said this at the end of the pod with Ben the other night. Like talent wise makes sense, personality makes sense. The fit always made sense when we put him in the mocks, but something just always felt like he's he's not going to get in, but he's going to
He's
be a
just
good
a little
player.
small.
Just yep, just a little bit, just a little bit. All right. That's gonna do it for this. This is the round one recap. So again, if you want some instant reactions to stuff as the picks were coming in, go to Box Score Network on Instagram and Twitter, but Instagram's where they all live. That's where Austin was doing those reactions. Great job by him. Make sure you are
Those
subscribed to
were
this
all
channel.
legitimate live reactions, by the way.
Broadcast is heard in the background, muted
Yes.
on the computer, all the whole bit. So go
Yeah.
check those out, please. Thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. We will be back tomorrow night. Me and Ben Parker will be here giving you like a day one, day two full recap of everything. And then I'll be back over the course of the weekend with draft grades. But for Austin, thank you. Have a great weekend. Doing some non-draft stuff.
Yes. Finally.
We're getting ready to wind down. You have some baseball stuff on mind. I have
Yeah.
a PlayStation that is going to be upstairs and turned
Yep.
on in about 48 hours. So we're almost at the home stretch here. So thank you all so much for watching. We will talk to you very soon.
See ya.